and thank you for tuning in. This is the second episode of the Juan on Juan podcast. I'm your host, Juan, and I just got done talking to an individual that goes by the name of Nick Hinton. I got put on to this guy by another podcast that I listen to. He has a very interesting hypothesis, theory, whatever you want to call it, idea. And I don't consider myself a conspiracy theorist, but I like to entertain other ideas. I like to flirt with other ideas. I like to keep an open mind when it comes to other ideas. And that's the reason why I started this podcast, because I wanted to talk to different people about their craft, about their life, about their ideology, whatever it may be. And I am everything on the table. I am not a religious person, but I am spiritual. I believe in evil, and I believe in good, and I believe in God. I believe that God created everything. I was born and raised Christian, but I honestly like conspiracies. I like to think outside the box, and I feel that in life you should question everything. Because nowadays, there's so much garbage on social media and so many different outlets that are coming out there. The government, the media, everything. They want you to believe what's on their agenda. And they've been caught lying before. NASA has lied about a bunch of things before. They faked the moon landing, whatever it is. So who's to say that the government's not lying about anything else? So I like to question everything. And I talked to Nick, and we left out so many things because it's just so much material. I read his book. I listened to all the podcasts he was on. I read his threads. He trended on Google, and he kind of went viral on Reddit with his idea. And I had to get a hold of him. I got a hold of him. Super cool guy and unsuspecting. You would never, you see this guy and you would never think that he believes what he believes. It's just, I haven't said what he believes in, but he believes that Saturn is orchestrating a simulation that we're in. He believes that the world, and in reality, as we know, it is a simulation, and it's all being controlled by the planet Saturn. Okay, it's pretty out there. It was for me at first, and a lot of the things that he points out, it may be true, and maybe not, and that's the beautiful thing about life, that it all could be true. So, got a hold of him. He he wanted to do an episode. He agreed to it. So what not a better opportunity than when I'm about to launch my podcast. So put your hands together. This is Nick Hinton and the Saturn Time Cube Simulation. Yeah, we're good to go. All right, Nick, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. It's so much information. I don't even know where to start. So I know you get this question a lot, but for the people who are listening that haven't heard of you, who is Nick Hinton? Like, what do you do, man?
Yeah, I do get this question a lot. So I don't know. It's hard to describe yourself from your own point of view, but I think I am just a thinker and a truth seeker, and someone who's trying to raise the collective consciousness. That's what I see as the ultimate good, and that's my goal in this life. So I guess in a short, simple way, that is who I am, is just a thinker and a seeker.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard question, It just makes you really think about yourself when somebody asks you that. I don't get that question very often either. So I read your book, man, and to say the least, it's an interesting thing. There's a lot of ideas in it. I've listened to all the podcasts you've been on multiple times. I got put on to You by Tinfoil Hats. And when I heard that, I was like, what is this about, man? So I reached out to you, got a copy of your book, and then I started just diving in. And a lot of the things you say, they all, in a way, fall in line with each other. And it makes you wonder: is it a coincidence? Is it not? What is this? There's a
Right,
quote
right.
by Albert Einstein. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one.
Yeah.
What did he mean by that? So, what is the Saturn Time Cube, and what are your thoughts behind that? The Saturn Time Cube simulation. What is all that about?
So to make it simple or break it down, in the most easy to understand way as possible, I usually begin explaining what this all is about to people by, just talking about the giant 20,000 mile wide hexagon on top of Saturn, which is, a factual thing. That's not a conspiracy. That thing literally is there. And then, if you that's like what really caught me off guard when I first started getting into all this. I was like, what the hell does all this mean? So that's when I fell down that rabbit hole of, coincidences. And so Saturn is associated with the god of time in like ancient Rome. And um, I'm gonna back up for a minute. If you draw some lines on the inside of a hexagon, you get a cube, correct?
Yeah, the outside
So,
view of a cube.
yes, exactly. So, and then these cubes are in a bunch of ancient cultures, all of these ancient cultures which used to worship Saturn, the god of time. And, so there's a giant cube at Mecca where the Muslims go to worship. Some certain denominations of Jewish people, they wear black cubes on their head when they go to pray. There's a black cube in the UN meditation room that they call it the altar to the God of everything. And, so these black cubes are everywhere, and they're associated with a bunch of religions and myths and, just stuff like that. And it's all super weird. And so the reason I talk about how, Saturn was the god of time, Kronos, but the whole reason I associate him with time is because the cube, we have the hexagon, which is a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional cube. Well, what I think these cubes are they're three-dimensional representations of a four-dimensional tesseract, which is also known as the time cube. And so once again, we're brought back to time. And so the simplest way to put it is I literally believe that we are in a simulation or like a giant computer. And right now we are building these giant black cubes called D-wave quantum computers, where the creators of these things literally say that they are interfacing with parallel universes and other dimensions and all this crazy stuff. And so I think these D-wave quantum computers are a very accurate representation of kind of what we're living inside of. And I think, the Saturn symbolism is everywhere because the people who worship Saturn are actually worshiping the programmer, and so in exchange, they get power over the simulation, but they have to do some dark things. And that's because, Saturn is also associated with Satan. Saturn is the sixth planet from the sun. There's a six-sided shape on top of its north pole. And Saturn Day is the sixth day of the week, 666. And Saturday is when Satanists go to Black Mass. So, and Kronos, as the god of time, was also known to eat his own children, which is pretty weird. But, that's just how the myth goes. And so I think that's kind of where satanic child sacrifice comes from. It comes from that symbolism.
Yeah, that's when you started talking about, you don't really think about these things until it's pointed out, because it's like you said, it's in plain sight. Like the 9/11 memorials and all that stuff, the movies, the Transformers. That what do they call it? The forgot the name of it, but that cube, it's got the power for the
Yeah, the
Transformers.
Allspark, I think it
The
is.
Allspark, yeah, Allspark. And it's funny because when I started reading this, and I'm like taking all this information in, it's so much to digest. And I'll be just like talking to my girlfriend about it, and I'll be like, oh my God, what this is, and what this is, and all these correlations. She's like, man, you're into some weird stuff. It's like, I'm not into some weird stuff. This could all the thing about all this is it could be a possibility.
Yeah.
You don't know what is real and what's not, because we're being fed things from organizations and the government, and who knows? Anything is possible. And it's crazy. The Geordie Rose, whatever his name is from D-Wave, that stuff is scary as hell.
Yeah.
He was talking about, I love H.P. Lovecraft, and I saw that video of him talking about summoning beings from another dimension.
Right, which he
who
called
are
the
gonna,
great old ones.
The great old, I said, and the people think he's just talking in front of these people, and they think that he's kidding. And this guy is so dead serious about this stuff.
Right.
And it's like, it's so powerful, and it just makes you really think about everything. It's funny because when I wrote to you, I told you I was going to do a sensory deprivation tank.
Yeah, I saw that you did it.
And I did it. I loved it. And it's funny because when I first got in there, I went to the bathroom, and there was a damn painting of a Rubik's Cube on the wall. So it's like all these things. And then I was on Amazon the other day, and the freaking Alexa is a black cube. The D-Wave computers, they're black cubes. So it's, Carl Jung, he talks about, I believe it's him, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you're familiar with him. He talks about what you don't understand, you try to make correlations. He talked, I think he had a theory about people who can't handle reality. They start coming up with these weird ideas and weird beliefs to make sense of reality. And it's just funny because I've been having all these synchronicities.
Yeah, synchronicity.
That theory, I didn't really know what it was until I started diving into all of this. And lately, I've gotten to a point in my life where, I'm trying to find the next thing. I'm only 25. I haven't found my passion yet. I haven't found my thing yet. So, I'm looking. I believe in God.
Yeah, me too.
But I like to be open-minded about things. I like to see things from a different perspective, because you do have people who just close themselves out, and there's a world out there, and there's good and there's bad, and there's more bad than good. And if you're so naive to just see things from one perspective, it could all be possible. And all these things have been falling in line in my life, and I'm like, I had two friends of mine back to back the same day, and synchronicities, they usually happen back to back to back. It was like they were talking to me about their jobs and how they don't feel fulfillment. Two of my friends the same day, back to back, they're like, oh, I'm going to join the Navy, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then that night I start reading a book a friend of mine wrote, and the character is unhappy with his life, trying to find fulfillment, and he just goes on this crazy journey, and it all relates. It's like, are these signs? Is this coincidence? Because I know you talk about manifestation and all that stuff, about how prayer and meditation, it's pretty much you're causing manifestations. Because if you think about it long enough, like the movie The Matrix, if you think about something, it will appear. So It does tie into the whole simulation theory that we might be in a simulation, because when people pray for somebody who has cancer or some terminal illness, and out of nowhere they're cured, doctors can't explain it, science can't explain it.
Yeah, spontaneous remission. They have no idea. They have no idea how that happens. They're like, sometimes it just does.
Yeah. So,
and actually, if you study medicine, a lot of these medicines, we don't even know how they work. We just know what reactions they have, but we don't understand why. So that kind of is weird to me too. Is everything a placebo in some sense?
Yeah. I believe, mind over matter, especially when I started to look into this, because I feel as that when people didn't know they had a terminal illness, I feel they die quicker after they find out. So they go to the doctor, and it's like, hey man, you have stage 4 so-and-so. And they fall into a depression. They were just fine.
Yeah.
And they fall into some sort of depression because they're constantly thinking about it, and they last weeks, months. And and if somebody tells you, hey Nick, you're gonna last another 4 weeks,
right,
that's gonna really eat away at you.
Right, you might create a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly, because you're thinking about it over and over and over and over again, and it might just happen.
Right.
So how did you connect these dots as far as because I know there's other similar theories online, and I've read into them. I can't recall this other guy's name, but they called him crazy. They called him a schizophrenic and all this
David
stuff.
Icke and Jordan Maxwell, they talk about the cube a lot.
David Icke, that's the
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Because I'll be honest with you, a lot of the things in the book, some of the ideas, they're out there.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if I buy into those as much, but the main core thing, how you relate, so what really intrigued me was the somatics, the astrophysics somatics of the wavelength for, I believe it's sine that makes that hexagon.
Yeah, yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about that, about how what you think is causing that shape on the top of Saturn?
Yeah, so in the study of cymatics, which is how sound affects matter, we discovered basically that a low frequency sine tone creates a hexagon in a medium. And, that's just really weird considering like how interconnected it is with other words and stuff like that, the symbology of it. Like, so a sine wave looks kind of like a serpent, it's like, we don't have video right now, so I can't really show an example, but it looks like a serpent.
Mm-hmm.
And when you create a sine wave on a calculator, you press the sin button. And so we're told we die because we're born into sin. Well, what is the sine wave? It's the time wave. We're born into the cycle of time. We're born into sin, so we die. And this all goes back to Kronos, Saturn being the god of time in the time cube. And you turn a sine wave on its side and it looks like a dollar sign. They say time is money, money is time, and what's the root of all evil? The love of money, who is at the very top of the pyramid. They call him Satan, which is Saturn. And yeah, so it all goes back to the serpent and sin and sign and all. It's crazy how this stuff all ties together. And when you mentioned the Rubik's cube, I was actually going to tell you some stuff about that I don't really get to talk about much. Is that the Rubik's cube is actually composed of 26 movable cubes, and there's one center one, which makes it 27 cubes total. But the movable cubes, there's 26 of them, and Saturn actually sits at a 26-degree angle on its axis.
Wow, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like that thing I sent you on Instagram, that box. It's like I'm starting to see things like that, but that's crazy. That's crazy. And you also talked about something about somebody had proof that there were spaceships in the Saturn in the rings of Saturn.
Oh yeah, so yeah, and that goes back into the frequency thing. So, NASA has literally said that there's eerie, creepy sounds coming from Saturn. So is that the sounds of the low frequency sine tone that is, affecting our reality, creating this simulation-esque, construct that we call the world, I guess. And so they have found, according to this one ex-NASA scientist, he has photographic evidence of these spaceships building Saturn's rings. And that just like clicked with me because David Icke has said that there is a frequency coming from Saturn, and he thinks the rings are actually like an amplifier, like a broadcasting system, pushing that frequency coming from inside of Saturn to our planet.
Wow. I sent you a picture of speaking of the rings of Saturn, of the Nike emblem, how it looks like it's the rings of Saturn, and then Amazon has that little arrow. You could kind of see the resemblance there, and
And we're on Skype right now. I mean, what does the Skype symbol look like?
an S. I haven't heard this one.
Well, the Skype symbol is literally, you see how it's like a circle with the rings coming out?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, your Internet Explorer, the old logo for Internet Explorer is the E with some rings going around it. And that all ties back into how in the book I talk about how the internet is literally another dimension that interfaces with whatever's inside Saturn. It is the AI dimension. If we end up creating an AI that takes over the world, which, I can't say if we will for sure or not, but if we do, I think the source of that is some alien technology that has been trying to basically trick people into building a doorway to let itself in. And we do all of that in the name of progress and advancement, but really it's just, it's a trick. The devil is a deceiver. And so I think that if we were to ever create some Skynet type thing like in the Terminator, the root of the cause would be the internet. It's all coming from this other strange world. We're across, we're in two totally different places in America right now, but we're almost in the same room in this other world in a way.
Yeah, you see it as a another the www in Hebrew is 666. You think that the World Wide Web is another dimension,
Yeah.
and we possibly open ourselves up to other entities, perhaps demonic or not, but other things. I don't know if you read that article. There's an article where there's people hacking the Ring doorbells. Have you seen that on
No.
the news? So apparently there was this family who installed a Ring doorbell, I guess. I don't know why you would do that in a room to
Mm-hmm.
watch their daughter. And apparently, yeah, it started making these weird noises and talking about in these creepy voices, saying, "Hey, I'm your friend." And it was some dude in China who hacked it, and they've been hacking it, and they're watching people and they're talking through it.
Dude, that's that's
But
messed up.
they say it's people in China. But
Right,
this
right.
makes you think because I have a Ring doorbell. You know,
Mm-hmm.
who's to say nobody's watching me? And they've even talked about Amazon listening to people through the Alexas and the Google Homes or whatever they're called. People listening to to people through that. You
Right,
know,
yeah.
there's been things about that. Um, so it's crazy we talk about NASA because the other day I work in an office and I have a clear front door, and I've been ordering a ton of things. I love Amazon, dude. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, me too.
It's awesome. It's the thing about society. We're getting lazier and lazier, and so I've been ordering packages since it's Christmas, nonstop. So I had this guy looking at me through my window. He was like knocking, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" He had the first thing I noticed, and I don't know if this again synchronicities. I don't know if this has anything to do with it. He had a NASA jacket on. I'm like,
Hmm.
what the hell? So then I open up the door. I'm like, yeah, what's up? He's like, oh, I'm from Amazon. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, like, why are you wearing a NASA thing? And like, I've been looking ever since I started talking to you. I've been literally just reading, listening, just putting all the dots together, writing my notes. And I'm like, what if I'm trying to tell my friends and I'm explaining to them all these things and they can't wrap their head around it. Like, are
They
you
think you've gone crazy.
are you crazy? But George Orwell, and this is another quote that I really like because I'm in the middle of the book 1984, and until they become conscious, they will never rebel, and until after they have rebelled, they cannot become conscious. So,
Yeah.
what does that mean? You know what I mean? And Terrence McKenna, I listen to him a lot. He has a lot of interesting theories, and again, it falls in the same thing. The cost of sanity in this society is a certain level of alienation. So
Yeah.
what does that mean? You gotta step out of the box, and you're gonna be looked at. You're gonna be looked down upon because like, oh, this guy's crazy, Nick. Nick is
Yeah.
our crazy uncle. How has this affected your day to day life? What does your family think of this? How has that affected your life at all? This information, having this.
Well, this all started like 10 years ago, and 10 years ago it was definitely not easy. People did think I was crazy. I lost friends. My family stopped talking to me. It caused a lot of fights, honestly. And I kind of became the black sheep of the family and became, alienated actually for a while. And, I had no one to relate to or talk to. So that was like kind of a dark period of my life. But, I think those dark periods are honestly needed. There's a lot of mystics and sages that talk about they use different language for it, but it's like a dark night of the soul. It's like a stage in alchemy, your transformation into a full human being. But nowadays it's a lot easier, because I'm manifesting results from this crazy knowledge. It's like I have some sort of credibility finally.
Because of
And
the
so,
internet,
yeah, because of the internet.
because of the interdimensional demonic realm that you talk about, it's made it all possible.
Right. I
Um,
mean, it's not all bad, but I do think that, you know, it, it's definitely, I think it's an alien technology. I mean, we can use anything for good or bad. You can use a knife to kill somebody, or you can use it to cut your steak. It's just how you use things, you know.
Yeah, I believe in that. It's like, the debate of gun control in America.
Right,
You know,
right.
like who did it? So now that we have this information, we connected the dots. Um, what do we do now? How do we stop this? Is there a way to stop it? Uh, what happens now?
Honestly, I can't say for sure. What I think people should be doing is just working on themselves, you know, and if the path calls to you to study this crazy stuff, then by all means do it. Dive deep into it, you know. It feels like a treasure hunt almost. It does give you a sense of purpose, and I think it's, you know, I think knowledge is very important to have, but honestly, I think in order to fix the world, what people have to do is become, you know, like individuals. You know, we can't rely on a group of people or a certain president or a leader to save us. We have to save ourselves, and if everyone saves themselves, you know, that's how society will actually change, and that's how we can actually do something.
Right on. How do you feel about psychedelics?
I think they're awesome. I mean, I haven't really done them. I mean, I want to experiment with them, but from what I've like researched on them, I do believe that they allow you to tap into some otherworldly source, you know, maybe somewhere beyond the simulation, or maybe deeper parts of your brain, you know, that, you know, certain psychedelics create more coherence in the brain. So,
I I've never tried psychedelics for the record, but I've always read about the theory that the government knows that we can tap into this unknown realm and break free from the simulation. I've heard the theory that you can break free from the simulation by doing psychedelics. For example, DMT. The
yeah,
Egyptians, they knew what the pineal gland looked like. How you're thinking about? I always think about how back then how these people had all this knowledge.
yeah. Well,
How. Okay.
in the simulation, you know, if it is a simulation, or like how the Hindus called it, you know, the cycle of rebirth and death, samsara, or, you know, Buddhists called it illusion. But I think the nature of the simulation is that time is cyclical. You know, it goes in a circle, just like a clock,
Mhm.
or our years, or how the Earth goes around the sun in a circle. You know, there's patterns that repeat all the time. So I think and even the Bible says that there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that's been done has been done in ages before, and people will forget about it. And so I think that's, you know, I think Atlantis or some super high tech civilization probably existed at one point where they did know all these things, and we're just coming back around to that same point in time.
Like the Mayans, how they knew, how they had all this knowledge,
Yeah,
and they
and they just
were.
disappeared.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna talk about that in a bit. And I know you have another theory, and I know you believe in God. What do you feel? How do you? What are your thoughts on that? On religion and God? What are your views on that?
Well, I mean, I'm basically a Gnostic. Not agnostic, just Gnostic, which is an ancient religion that believed reality was. They had a word for reality that was HAL, like Hall, and it literally means simulation. It means like a false reality, and they believed that the material world was fake, and it was created by a flawed god known as the demiurge, and that there was a true God, and he was the source of all creation, but we've become, you know, we still have a spark of him within us. We have a spark of that divinity, and the whole goal is to free that spark at the end of our by the end of our life and return to the source. So I believe Jesus. I don't know if he was an allegory or the real son of God or what. You know, I choose to have faith in him because that's what makes me feel comfortable. But I think he was definitely a messenger of this secret Gnostic truth. And I think a lot of what he said is kind of like coded. I mean, he even said he spoke in parables. So, and there's been books taken out of the Bible, and, you know, Christians will tell you all day how the devil is the god of the material world. And it's like, well, if he is, the Bible's a material thing. You don't think that that could have maybe not the whole truth in it, and maybe that there's still extra work to do?
Yeah, that's a thing. I was listening to Terrence McKenna, and as far as looking and opening your eyes to see the reality, he talked about a story in the Bible where the forgot the guy's name, where he doubted that Jesus came back from the dead, and
Hmm.
he said, "Not until I put my hand in the wound, the wounds on his hands, will I
Hmm.
believe." And Jesus came by and he said, "Hey, listen, put your hands in the wounds so you can believe." And he did. And Terrence McKenna related it to that if we doubt, that person doubted enough and he had enough sense in himself to doubt, what they're feeding us pretty much. Will they let us touch the wound and put our hands in the wound to realize what's really going on?
Right.
Have you been have you been questioned by anybody? Has anybody come see you? Uh, I know you went viral. You started trending. Um,
Yeah.
has anybody come see you? I mean, how does
No, no, I'm safe. And no crazy people have come looking for me, no government officials, nothing like that.
no guys in black suits,
No.
knocking on your door? But how did you feel when because I read the Reddit thread. How did you know, like, man, what have I done? I've opened up, a can of worms because there's a lot of people who doubt you. I've seen both sides of the argument. And
Hmm.
again, I can see where it's out there, but that's the beautiful thing about life. It could all be a possibility.
Right, yeah. I mean, yeah, I just don't really pay it attention. I don't care if everyone in the world believes me. I don't need that. It's like I'm only here talking for the people that are interested in these things already, and I'm trying to connect dots for people who already have an open mind. If you're closed-minded, I'm not going to try and push anything on you. I'm not going to try and convince you, that's just a waste of time because they won't change. You can't change a person.
Yeah, yeah, I agree on that. You can't help anybody who can't help themselves. I've
Right.
always said that. And there's people who always want to do change. And I hear people complain, oh, this, that. It's like, well, go do something about it, man.
Yeah.
Get up off your ass. If you're unhappy with your job, if you're unhappy with your life, whatever it is, just do something about it. Um, so you believe, I also read in the book that you believe we're reincarnated after death, and what we do in this life affects what happens to us in the afterlife. Like you talked about the energy. So if you do good things in this life, you can either avoid the light or
Yeah,
go into
I mean,
it.
these are all theories. I've heard from a lot of people who astral project, and some people who had near death experiences, that the moon is a soul trap, and there's a lot of coincidences that surround that, and that's even somewhat hinted at in Buddhism, and there's a lot that goes into that. But I think ultimately the whole goal is to escape the wheel of reincarnation. But yeah, so if you do end up getting reincarnated somehow, um, I think that what you do in this life definitely affects your next life. I mean, that's almost a theme in like every religion. You reap what you sow. So I don't think it's just this lifetime.
A part in your book that blew my mind was the play on words,
Hmm.
where you talked about grammar.
Yeah, comes from the word Grimoire, which is a book of magical spells.
Yeah, and how you said that when we speak, it's literally we have power in what we speak.
Yeah,
And when I read that, man, I was like, what? What is
yeah.
happening?
You're constantly, you spell a word because they are spells. You're constantly casting spells whenever you speak. God created the world through His word, and God was the Word. So if we're anything like God's children, we probably have that same power. And back to cymatics, that's a scientific thing that literally proves that vibrations and frequencies, sound affects matter.
Yeah, well, you talked about the Hebrew. If you do the Hebrew letters, it comes out in sand or something like that. You talked about that?
Yeah, if you speak the Hebrew vowels, and amplify it through a speaker, the frequency it makes will literally shape sand or water or whatever medium you have into the exact shape of the letter.
That's crazy, man. I didn't, again, it blew my mind, and it's so much to think about, and it just really makes you doubt so many things. And I watch a lot of Graham Hancock, and I
Hmm.
wanted to get to you honestly before you show up on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell my friends, be like, that guy, dude, I had him on my podcast before he was on Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? So I was like, man, this guy's gonna, he's gonna keep blowing up. I gotta get him on, and I really appreciate you taking the time and actually, writing back to me, and be like, hey, you know, um,
Of course, man.
uh,
I mean, I was inspired because you moved fast. You told me you were creating a podcast and you did it. Some people will BS with you and just be like, yeah, yeah, I really want to do it. And then, they don't get stuff done. But I was like, this dude moves quick.
well, dude, it's like I've gotten to the point in my life. Like I said, I'm young, but I've done so many things. I have different hobbies, and I'm just trying to find the thing I'm most passionate about. And I've had this what I'm calling like a personal enlightenment, like a period in my life where I don't want to waste time. I feel that the knowledge is power. So every day, literally, and this is how I heard about it. I listen to podcasts all day, every day, because I feel that if you're not constantly learning, then what are you doing? You're wasting time. You got people who they get home, they don't do shit. They stay. I love video games. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
they just sit there and they waste time. It's like, how can people don't read anymore.
Yeah.
People don't read anymore. They're just so close in my social media is so toxic. And I just recently took a break from social media, but the reason I'm back on is to be able to network again my podcast, because I'm the type of person, when I say something, dude, I do it.
Right.
And what's the worst that could happen? What, people don't like the material? Oh, you had that guy Nick on. That guy's crazy. It's like, well, I'm gonna talk about things on my podcast that I find
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
You know what
You
I
want to
mean?
talk about you want me to talk about different things? Start your own podcast and you talk about them.
Exactly. So I feel that I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. I believe in evil, and I believe in the dark things in the world. And you know, this is why I started the podcast, because I wanted to have other people on, yourself and other people with different points of views. I explained this to some people, and I talked to them about the theory, and they show me how. They're like, dude, are you crazy? What are you smoking? He's like, what drug are you on? It's like, I'm not on any drug. He's like, why can't it be real? You
Right.
know, why can't it be real?
I mean,
Um,
one thing I always think about, I try not to get upset or mad, but I mean, if people are really like that, it's like I honestly think a lot of people in society are the real crazy ones. How do you not question? That to me sounds like insanity, that you're just walking around living in this world and you don't even care. That to me is actually crazy.
yeah, they'll take whatever they're feeding them.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I'm not. I don't. I I get most of my news, I guess, from Reddit. I don't watch the news. Nobody watches TV anymore. Let's just get that straight.
Yeah,
Everybody's
yeah.
either a streaming service, or that's it. TV's dead.
Yeah,
But
it really is.
I like to read, and there's so many theories out there, man. So many different ideologies.
Yeah.
For one of my favorite ones was God a mushroom? You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah. I read
That's a
about that.
crazy one. It's like, what? Moses seeing the visions because of the bush. They say that in that part of the world, that bush is high in DMT. Was he hallucinating? Because right now,
Right.
let's be realistic for just 1 second. If somebody came up to you, like how you have your thoughts about this Saturn Time Cube, if somebody went up to you and said, "Listen, man, I know of a guy who can walk on water, heal the sick from just touching them, and do all these crazy things, and he was just dead yesterday, but he came back today." What would what would you think about that? It's like,
A couple of years ago, I probably wouldn't believe it, but nowadays I would.
well, nowadays, yeah. So it's just crazy. And I know you're not alone as far as when it comes to the simulation theory. A lot of big names. One of my other favorite people in the world is Elon Musk.
Hmm.
Elon Musk, he's also said about that. We're in a simulation. The probability of us being in a simulation is high. That's not how the quote went, but something along the lines of that, where
It's
he
like a
believes.
billion to one or something like that.
Yeah, so we're and he believes in the multi-universe, the
Hmm.
multiverse theory. And ever since I don't know if this is in your book. I can't remember because it's just so many things about when you have deja vu.
Hmm.
It's echoes that you hear because maybe you relived it a
Yeah,
bunch.
like
Can you
reincarnation.
explain what your thoughts are on that so the people who are listening don't go, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Well, I mean, so if we've been reincarnated before, like countless numbers of times, to me it makes sense that you've probably lived through a certain situation before. Maybe your soulmate was just wearing a different mask and you met them before in a past life and you guys are always meant to meet at a certain time, in a certain area and certain situation. But it's like all the world's a stage, like William Shakespeare said, but sometimes the props are different and the scenery's a little different and you wear a different costume. So I think we go through the same lessons over and over again until we learn the lesson. And if you don't, you get reincarnated. But so I think deja vu is just like an echo from time being cyclical. You're experiencing the same events that you've experienced long before. You just forgot, but maybe your soul can't forget or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, because they say that as far as reality goes, uh, you're in the path of least resistance. So if you're living your life with the best potential path that you have, and some people die within that path, but they say that you can branch out at any moment on a different part of your reality.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
so it's like I was reading about the cat in a box experiment this guy did. I should have wrote his name down.
Oh, the
Where
Schrodinger's cat.
yes, sir. Where he's alive and dead at the same time, and you can't really know unless you're physically looking at it.
Right. Until yeah. So there's like a vial of radioactive fluid in there that will only be opened up if some certain reaction happens, which is like totally random. So it's not like a 50-50 chance. It's just like unknown if the vial will open or not. And
Yeah,
so the cat's inside the box with the vial. And so until you open the box, there's equal possibility that it could be dead or alive. And
in essence, it's both. It's dead and alive because you
exactly,
don't know.
that's in quantum mechanics, that's called superposition. Particles exist, like subatomic quantum particles actually exist in superposition until they are measured or observed by like one of our scientific, or not scientific, but just our instruments that we use to measure quantum particles. They
My
act as waves until they collapse into particles.
Yeah, another crazy that's that the two slit experiment. That's another thing that blew my mind. The
Yeah,
observer is actually affecting what happens.
right,
So who's to say that if if us observing, because we only see 0.0035 of the light spectrum.
right,
Can you imagine all the things going on around us that we can't see? And
right.
what's to say that if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a noise?
I mean, my answer to that's no, because there's no observer.
Because there's
You
no
know,
observer, so you don't know.
yeah,
And that's the crazy part. So like, if when we're not looking at something, what's going on behind the scenes? You can't watch your back at all times. So what's going on when you're not watching it? Because the observer has a direct effect on what's
right.
going on.
I mean, it's like a video game. So, if you're not in a place, that part of the map hasn't loaded, and then
Yeah.
in some old video games, you could be, like GTA, you're running around and then you see like in the horizon things just loading, like
Yeah.
things popping up.
Can you imagine that's what's actually going on? It's like, man, this guy's got 2020. Let's go ahead and push it back a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know you also, speaking of Graham Hancock, earlier, how he thought he believed in Atlantis and all that stuff and advanced civilizations, because there's so many things in this world that we don't even understand, and so many uh theories. Again, it just blows my mind, and this is what I love about it, because I am always asking questions. Graham Hancock, I was listening to him, and then I saw that you had a theory about it, about what really happened in 2012,
Hmm.
when the Mayans had predicted the end of the world, or what a lot of people interpreted as the end of the world. Maybe they
Yeah.
meant something else, by it being the end of the world?
Well, they
Di-
were really just talking about the end of an age and the beginning of a new one. We're moving into the age of Aquarius, whereas, just a little bit ago, a couple thousand years, I guess that's not really a short amount of time,
Yeah.
but we are in the age of Pisces, and Pisces is represented by a fish. People have the Jesus fish on their car, and he was pretty famous for turning two fish into a bunch of fish for people
Yeah.
to eat. So it's like I don't know if he's an allegory or if he's real or not. Like I said, I choose to have faith, but the symbology is all there. He was like the messenger of the age of Pisces. And so now we're entering the age of Aquarius, where according to some people, I don't really know what's going to happen, but according to some people, the messenger of the age of Aquarius, or like the the figurehead of it, I don't know, like it'll be the Antichrist.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and that's crazy. We're approaching, or they say we've already reached singularity. Because every year, technology is so advanced,
Yeah.
and eventually, they say what? And speaking of Elon is making a Neuralink where they literally want to hook you up to a computer directly.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
low key terrifying.
yeah, people, if people tell you, especially nowadays, because so much technology has made, it's a good and it's a bad thing. Like your mind, the mind has been, it's done the greatest things in history and as well as the worst things in history. Because
Right.
it's like we talked earlier. It's not how you, it's how you use it. It's not how it can be good, it can be bad. If I use a knife to kill you, or I can use a knife to cut my steak. How am I going to use it?
Right.
So all these great minds, because Hitler was, I like to talk about Hitler a lot because he was a great mind. He was super smart, because how can you manipulate millions of people to,
You change their way of thinking.
that's powerful, because
Yeah.
if he wasn't able to talk the way he was, as so charismatic how he was, and if you I don't know what the hell he's saying, but if you watch his speeches, he's so animated and with authority. And it's
Right.
like, if he wasn't able to do that, and he did become an artist how he wanted
Hmm.
to, how would that have affected history,
Right.
altogether? So it, I just life is crazy. There's so many things in our world that we don't even understand, and just question everything. I do. And I've shared this theory with people, and they don't know. I'm like, you know what? Just listen to the podcast. This guy looks like a regular guy. You look like somebody I'd hang out with.
Right.
Not some nuts like this guy. Like, no, this dude looks like a normal person, but he's thinking all these things. So I saw that you were also doing something called the Fathom Project.
Yeah. Yeah. The Fatum Project
The Fathom
slash
Project.
the Randonauts.
Yeah, what is that? And so you can explain to the people, and you can become a randonaut. What is a randonaut? What is
Randonaut is just, like a cosmonaut, someone who explores the random, hence the rando, so you're exploring random points of reality. Um, Basically what we do is we use a quantum random number generator, which is true randomness, and those numbers are then turned into GPS coordinates, and you just travel to the location, and it's somewhere you would have never ever gone in a million years. Like maybe it's the supermarket or something, but at that time of the day, according to your normal routine, your normal thoughts, your normal habits, your subconscious patterns, you would never be at that spot at that time. Like there's no reason to go to the supermarket if you're not hungry or don't need food. So but the crazy thing about going to these quantum random points is that sometimes people will experience, what you were talking about earlier, synchronicities. So we think there's something to it.
Yeah, it's again, that's the thing. I went on Reddit, and I generated a location that was nearby me, but I didn't go. It's like I told you, if you're ever in Orlando, we can go around and just do some weird shit. Just go around and random on and find these different things, because the theory behind it is that you might branch out to other possibilities in your timeline.
Yeah, exactly. I
Different
mean,
realities.
you're literally breaking out of your predetermined path. You are actually, in a very literal sense, you're branching off into a different timeline because you're using quantum randomness. Like, there's no other way to break out of your little bubble without using quantum numbers. At least I don't think, or that there's no way we know of yet.
Yeah.
Because it's literally impossible to get past your own subconscious patterns and external influences. And it's kind of like there's an invisible tunnel blocking you off from doing anything else. It's like you have a certain set of probabilities that make the most sense for you at the time. But when you use quantum randomness, you're totally breaking out of that probability tunnel.
You said a tunnel, almost like if we were being controlled by something or someone or a Saturn, maybe. You know how this all ties together? It goes back to the same thing. It's like,
Yeah.
what if
Some
we
people
are?
compare it to breaking the simulation. That's not what the creators are trying to do, but there's for some reason it became a really popular thing where people were writing articles and interviewing us saying like, you guys are breaking the simulation, and
Hacking the matrix.
yeah, or hacking the matrix or glitching the matrix, because if there was, some program running the whole show, what happens to the program when people start doing things it can't predict?
Yeah, it starts to freak out.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, we talked, crazy how ancient civilizations that how they had technology, we don't know how they got it. And then another one that really, really blew my mind was the Han purple.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because I've seen the terracotta. I went to a museum in Chicago one time, and they had an exhibit. And at the time I didn't know about this until I read it in the book. And it's like, what in the world? 2,800 years ago, they had this color that scientists took until 1990 something to figure out how to make. How did
Right,
these people back then know that?
right.
You know, either someone or something. I always believe that they were shown. They say they killed Jesus because he was an alien. You know what
I
I
don't
mean?
know about that, but
That's one of that's one of the things I heard. Yeah, I read about.
hmm
They believe that he was an alien. That's why they killed him. Again, is that what's really what really happened? Who knows? You know,
right. I mean,
but
I'm not one to talk and say I don't know about that, but that's just because I believe way crazier things, but that's something I just can't believe. I think Jesus came to show what true human potential looked like.
ladies and gentlemen, that is too crazy for Nick Hinton to believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's amazing, man. Your book blew my mind. It's a good read. I read it. I literally sat down and couldn't put it down, so I read it all in one sit through. And where can the people find you? What's your Instagram? If you want them to find you, what's your Twitter? Where can the people look for you, man, and write to you?
NickHinton on Twitter and Instagram. And if you need a book, just shoot me a DM. I'm currently working on getting a store set up, but for right now, I'm just kind of doing it all by myself and through PayPal. So hopefully in the future, I'll have like a store set up on my website, and it'll make things a lot simpler because I get flooded with messages every day. But it's all kind of overwhelming, but it's all been awesome. It's all been fun, and it's all I've ever really dreamed of. And I'm just kind of trying to get used to it.
Are you working on anything else at the moment? What's going on in your life right now that's exciting that you can share with us? That
uh,
are you writing another book? Is there another theory in the works? Like, what's going on?
yeah. I'm gonna come out with another book that's basically just all of my other threads combined into one book. And just in case, who knows what'll happen in the future if the information will get taken down, or the internet becomes more censored or whatever. So I just want people to be able to own everything in physical copy if they really want it. And that's something that can't be lost, really. And so I'm going to release another book, and then I kind of want to take a break from conspiracies for a while and just like do art and music and stuff like that. But I am moving out to LA to start a podcast with one of my business partners, and so I'll
Nice.
still be talking about some of this stuff, but I want to focus on art and music and poetry and stuff after I get this other book finished.
Yeah, it's like me. I want to put my, do something creative,
Mm-hmm.
put my creativeness towards something. And I feel like this is gonna help because podcasts are really, really popular now. Everybody's got a podcast.
Yeah.
Actually, when I went to go do my sensory deprivation, so this is gonna be the second episode. So we're speaking in the future. This is gonna be the second episode, and my first episode is gonna be about my experience in the sensory deprivation. And the guy who works there, one of the co-owners, he actually has his own podcast too.
Oh,
So I
no
was like,
shit.
yeah, again, synchronicity, like all these things like going on. I'm like, what is happening? He's, and if I would have never gone there, if I would have never done that experience, I would have never found this guy, and I would have never. And now he's gonna do an episode with me, about, he does this for a living, so he knows a lot of things, and it's just gonna have fun with it, and that'll be the first episode. So again, dude, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a lot of information. We missed a ton of stuff as well, but it's just
Yeah.
that's the core thing that I really wanted to get out there because when I first read it and started, dude, I've listened to all the other podcasts you've been on like 2 or 3 times because I'm just trying to like, what in the hell, and
Thank you, man.
and all this, like, it intrigues me so much. I love it. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today, man. And we'll be in touch. If you're ever in Orlando, let me know,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
we'll go randonauting or something. Do whatever, get a beer or something.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you for having me on.
Well, there you have it, guys. I told you it was deep, but you gotta question everything. It needs to be done. You can still enjoy life, but just think outside the box for just 1 second and go. Is what Hollywood, all these movies, what it's all about? Is it real? Is it not? And again, it could all be real. Go follow Nick on Instagram, read his book, follow us on Instagram at the Juan on Juan podcast. Give us a like, share, leave us a review on this podcast as well. Let me know what you guys think. Anything you guys want to hear about, you can contact me on my Instagram or at the Juan on Juan podcast at gmail.com. Keep a lookout for our next episode. It'll be on next week sometime. Really appreciate the support. Thank you, guys.